Are you tired of having a blocked nozzle? Finding it hard to aim that tip? That relatable feeling when you spray yourself in the face when you're trying to paint a chapter master? When you feel you've gone as far as you can without help, it's time. It's tabletop time!
And I am Dave, and today we're going to take you through the journey of how we destroyed over $1,000 worth of airbrushes and what you can do to avoid making the same mistakes. Jazza has always been a fan of kinesthetic learning, and while I do like learning in a hands-on fashion, I'm more of a read the manual and watch some tutorials before handling expensive equipment kind of guy. Now behind me is, well, the airbrush graveyard. For many hobbyists, it's probably a more terrifying sight than the elephant graveyard from Lion King. Each of these airbrushes tells a story, and I can't wait to share with you what they all are. So I guess that leads to the point. What is this video? Well, it's a lesson in humility, and it's also a lesson in what not to do. But before we get stuck into the nitty-gritty, I thought it was about time that I take the time to go back to basics a little bit with airbrushing. So you know what? This little tester is kind of reminding me of space. Space. The final frontier. And the sponsor of this week's video, Star Trek Fleet Command. Now I am kind of the only Star Trek fan in the studio, so I'm stoked to be able to play a cool game where I can combine all my different characters. That's right, you can collect officers from the original series, TNG, Star Trek Discovery, so you can recruit them to your crew and engage in real-time combat all throughout space. Defend your allies and punish your enemies as you build resources and upgrade your base. I'm really lucky at Tabletop Time because I've got the Will Wheaton that you've got at home right here, and I'm gonna show him how to play.
That's right, I'm in your home.
So, all right, this is Star Trek Fleet Command, and this is my little fleet. The missions are all like story developed, and it's got sort of a galaxy map, like a 4X. There I go. Whee! It's a Klingon trader, and he's over here, and his name is Katok.
Sure.
And then they start shooting phasers and stuff at each other, torpedoes, and then he dies. I will say, one thing I was very appreciative of as a TNG fan is literally the first thing you do in the game is blow up a Cardassian ship, which, yeah, that felt good. Fucking Cardassians, man. Goddamn Cardassians. I hate the Cardassians. Now, Star Trek Fleet Command is completely free to play and download on iOS and Android, so check out the link in the description. You could literally be downloading it while I'm doing the sponsor read. In fact, if you start downloading it at the start of the sponsor read, you'll be done by the end of the sponsor read downloading it, and you can sit there and start playing it as soon as this video ends. It's a win-win, basically.
All right, I've finally got all the replacement airbrushes for all the hard work that the other ones we've used have been put through.
Oh my God, there's a lot in there.
There's a lot in here. I made sure that the most expensive one, this came out of my pocket. So this is my airbrush,
okay,
but I want you to learn how to use it so you can show me how to not break it this time.
This is a $470 airbrush that you blew up.
Yes.
Cool.
I thought airbrushes were like musical instruments where like the better thing you have, the better you sound and it works. And no, it turns out, I guess, like musical instruments, you should probably be decent enough at using them for them to come into their own. Anyway, so this is, I think this was like an eBay or like a cheap version of a good airbrush with like all the dials and things that some of the expensive ones have. I think it'd be interesting to give a go. This is the Iwata HPC Plus. Now I think this was the one you said was your favorite.
I think the Eclipse was the one that I had originally used, but
it looks similar. I think it's just got an extra dial, so it's about the same.
Hell yeah.
All right, good luck, sir.
Thank you.
I'll salute you.
Get out of here. So if I was going to do a video in which I sort of roasted the fact that we've been destroying airbrushes, I thought it only fitting that I start with the one that I ruined. Now, how did that come about?
Jazza, it is I, Dave. Please, won't you teach me how to clean an expensive airbrush?
Oh, hi Dave. Yeah, just put it in some bloody airbrush cleaner or something, you know? Just dunk it in and leave it for however long.
Excellent. I shall take these words to heart.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Anytime. Look, anytime. I read it in a manual.
the Iwata Eclipse. He was trying to keep a squeaky clean image, but let's just say he ended up drowned, and now he's sleeping with the fishes.
So with this issue largely coming down to how airbrushes are maintained and cleaned, basic cleaning seemed like a really good first step. And I found a bunch of tutorials by the YouTube channel Airbrush Asylum to be particularly helpful in that. Some large takeaways from those videos involved teaching me that there are areas of the airbrush that can be taken apart and cleaned that you maybe otherwise don't think about. One of those areas is cleaning in and backwashing from the back of the airbrush, which is something that I'd never been shown how to do or didn't know you had to do. Using small brushes with airbrush cleaner, I just set about the delicate and careful work of trying to restore this airbrush that has had some gunk dried in it for a very long time. Now, as far as the airbrushes today, this one wasn't the most clogged. There was a lot of cosmetic paint dried onto areas, but I didn't necessarily think that would be a huge problem, but I cleaned it off nonetheless. The Eclipse was battered by constant use by novices, but I think largely the problem is that we disintegrated the O-ring. A lot of these cleaning kits come with nozzle sealant and airbrush grease, which you can use to run over the threads and will improve the seal against air. So ultimately, that was my temporary fix to try and get this airbrush working again. I covered the offending area in grease and sealed it tightly. And I was pretty happy to see that it worked. I at least fixed my mistake, and that's the most important thing. So besides the cleaning knowledge I gained in how to clean an airbrush, the main takeaway from the Iwata is be careful using chemicals like airbrush cleaner. Some of the more expensive airbrushes have very expensive replacement parts. Even the O-ring on this you can buy for approximately $20, which for a small piece of rubber is rather expensive.
Reaper Vex wanted to live a good life, but unfortunately, we literally pulled him into small pieces and then poured them down the drain. Well, most of them. Anyway, it was stupid. He didn't need to die, he was young. But there it is, another innocent victim to our stupidity.
The first thing I noticed when using the Reaper Vex and starting to look at it is that what I assumed to be streaking grime, I think could actually be rust. As I cleaned out the various elements, I found heaps of this gunk clogging it up, and clearly this would be the cause of any kind of obstruction. Using things like enamel washers in brushes and then not cleaning them up seems like a recipe for absolute disaster. However, this brush was unique to the other brushes in that it had a separate trigger mechanism. And it was this that I feel is the ultimate fail point of the airbrush. I managed to get it operating again sans 1 or 2 bits. I have absolutely no two-step control. I have on or off, paint or no paint. And the only way I can regulate the paint is by pulling back on the pin itself, because somewhere in this spring to trigger mechanism, something is broken and it just doesn't work. So the Reaper Vex remains murdered.
Vallejo Infinity was an expensive man. He left a wife and 2 children in his home in Florida to move to Australia and work at his dream job at Jazza Studios. But little did he know, Jazza was gonna put him under a lot of pressure. The victim was found covered in glitter. Nobody knows what happened.
The first thing I noticed about this brush was, oh my gosh, it is so full of this thick, clunky, glue-like sparkle glitter that Jazza has previously used. I have a sneaking suspicion this was used to apply some kind of holographic glitter effect on his Pokemon cards, but either way, this substance has definitely contributed to the demise of this airbrush. Beyond that, there is also some obvious damage on the inner threads at the front of the airbrush, and I'm not entirely sure how this was done. Pulling this airbrush apart and thoroughly cleaning it was quite satisfying, and in areas I had to come in and almost scrape off this gunk that was glued onto the inside of the airbrush. I made sure to go back up and down to the back part of the assembly and clean that as well. Despite the cleaning I gave it and the use of airbrush cleaner, some of this sparkly effect is so glued onto it that I couldn't clean it off. So I definitely think this sparkle paint is an absolute no-no for airbrushes, and I'm going to very strongly work word that. So due to the fact that Jazz had bought another Infinity, we had an advantage, which was spare parts. The Infinity actually comes with 2 different needles, nozzles, and heads, 2 different sizes and 2 different types of airbrushing. And given that that meant that around the studio we had a total of 4, I decided to load it up with the 0.4mm needle and leave the other one for the 0.2mm needle. This way we had a kind of a broader strokes, high quality airbrush if I could fix it, as well as a brand new one to be more just for high detail brushing. With all the components cleaned, replaced, and reassembled, I was ready to test it out, and oh boy was I delighted to find it worked. This is a really good example of using your tools for the purpose they're made. The Infinity with the 0.2mm nozzle is a precision painting airbrush for high quality mini painting with a huge range of control, and is not the sort of tool you want to be belting through some kind of acrylic sparkle medium. It is clear from the spray patterns that it is not completely back to what it was when we first got it, but it is still now a serviceable airbrush. I recommend you have a cheap, no brand airbrush you can pick up for $30 to $50 that you can use for the more rough applications of things maybe you shouldn't put through an airbrush. And if you do, make sure you clean it immediately. There is nothing worse than leaving an airbrush for weeks uncleaned.
All right, it is the day of the video release, and I'm filming this to last minute edit it into the video. We received this amazing airbrush from Squidmart, and by the time we got it, his airbrush is actually no longer available for sale. It was only up for 2 weeks. So to anyone who got it, congratulations, because it is a gorgeous piece of equipment. Squidmart also has a really good video on airbrushing as well. So check them out and basically do as we say, not as we did. And we really hope that this helped, and thank you once again to Emil for sending us this sweet airbrush, and really awesome that you got to make it. It's so cool. So congratulations.
I did it! I fixed 2 of our airbrushes, which means I really should have named this video how we broke $200 worth of airbrushes and fixed the rest once we actually sat down and read the manual. But really what this was hopefully a bit of fun and a video that can show you a little bit of the pitfalls that you can fall into while starting a new hobby with a little bit too little experience, and how the best tools do not necessarily make for the best practitioners. Now, if you want some really in-depth and awesome content beyond my small examples and talking through some of the little tips and small moments, check out the channels that really showed me what to do. And those are Airbrush Asylum, Scale a Ton, and I also checked out Angel Giraldez's video on how to quickly clean an airbrush in the middle of a painting project, which was super helpful. So go check them out, show them some love for showing me how to not ruin all our equipment. I'm so glad that thanks to the patrons, I could sit down, take some time, actually learn all this stuff. So thank you, patrons, and thank you to Star Trek Fleet Command, the sponsor of this video. Free on iOS and Android, so download it today. Links in the description. And as a final comment, because we love dragging these endings out, hey, thanks for sticking with my nonsense. I kind of got free reign to make whatever I want, and for some reason today, I just really felt like making some stupid skits and infomercial bits and like whatever that was. So yeah, I hope you find that stuff as funny as I do, and if not, you're probably under like 18, so that makes sense. I mean, I'm an old man, and you Zoomers are not, so, you know, enjoy your beans.
Vaped beans.
You guys are vaping along with us. Tell me what you're vaping on.